Thank you, Marcia, and thank you so much for all that you and everybody else associated with Blue Wave has done. This has been a remarkable example of what people can do when they get together and organize for change. And despite the disappointments of this election, Blue Wave has a lot to be proud of and a very strong future. I wanted to just start by, and I'm just going to talk briefly, I thought of my late father during this election aftermath. My father was 20 years old at the time of Pearl Harbor. He was a college student, and like many people his age, including George Herbert Walker Bush, who was actually younger, in high school at the time, they made a decision to enlist. And my father ended up flying 31 missions over Nazi Germany, being shot down. And so did thousands of others in the United States at the time of Pearl Harbor. Why did they enlist? They enlisted because democracy was at risk. Everything their parents and grandparents and great-grandparents had built in this country was at risk. And they did not choose when they were called to serve. In their case, they were only teenagers. Our generation has had it easy. We've never been called to serve. We've never been forced to enlist. Maybe there are some veterans here, so they would be an exception to that. But the vast majority of us have never truly answered the call when democracy was on the line. And that is not something that's at our choosing. We're not called when it's convenient. We're called when we're called. And the baby boomers, who I think are basically to blame for the election outcome, that's certainly what my children tell me, they now have an extra responsibility. I think we all know the stakes, and I'm reminded of this great line from Wendell Phillips, a great abolitionist, that eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. So the question is, how do we become vigilant? And there is no single answer. So as a journalist, I have my own responsibilities. We fell down in the job collectively, I think, as everybody knows. There were more articles warning about Trump than maybe people remember, and a lot of us spent an awful lot of time trying to warn the country, but we failed collectively. So we have to do better. I have to do better in my own profession. Lawyers have a particular responsibility because they are officers of the court, and they, when they are admitted to the bar, they have responsibilities to defend our Constitution. So they're going to have to organize in ways to make sure that our rights are protected. People in all other lines of work have responsibility, and that responsibility is summed up, I think, in the old line comes out of democratic politics. Early to bed, early to rise, work like hell, and organize. There's no substitute for organization. And I think it's time to kind of end the backward-looking hand-wringing about how not enough of us were on the Blue Wave buses to Pennsylvania. Not enough of us did what we needed to do, and instead to look forward and to commit. And so I guess what I would ask of everybody today is to commit not just now, but to make a 4-year commitment. That was what churches are famous for people getting up and committing to Christ or whatever, but whatever your faith dictates. But I think in our civic religion, we're less comfortable with making those kinds of commitments, and we all have busy lives, and things change, and Donald Trump will do some things that are not only not so bad, they might even be good, like rebuilding infrastructure. We need to be careful to pick our battles and not object to absolutely everything that he does. And there will be a tendency to normalize our reaction to him. This will be very powerful, not only because you have a Republican Party that is full of appeasers, as we've learned during the campaign, but because there's a normal human inclination on everybody's part to want to think that things are going to be okay. So it will be very hard to maintain that commitment for a full 4 years when the grief and shock of this election wears off and he doesn't turn out to be Adolf Hitler. But we need to commit today and then figure out ways of reminding ourselves of this commitment. And what does that commitment entail? Blue Wave, more of the great organizing impulse, but I think also a commitment to spread across state lines into Pennsylvania. That's where it went wrong, was in Pennsylvania and Michigan and Wisconsin, but Pennsylvania margin was much larger, and the loss of Pennsylvania really symbolizes what happened in this election. Blue Wave can connect with smaller organizations in eastern Pennsylvania and just reclaim those counties for the Democratic Party, and extend the margins that they have in Democratic counties and begin to work in exurban America, rural America, to begin to tell those folks that the Democratic Party really represents their interests better. That has not happened. The collapse of the Democratic vote in rural America is what really tipped this election. All of the counties that went for Obama and then flipped because the people living there felt they had been left behind. Reaching out to them, knocking on their doors, calling them up is a way of telling them when Trump isn't fulfilling his promises to them, which I think is likely, that we haven't left them behind. That can't be done 6 weeks before an election. It has to be done on a constant basis, building capacity, building organization over time. It's hard work, but it can be really fun work, as Barack Obama learned when he was a community organizer. You meet all kinds of people that you wouldn't expect to meet, and you enrich your own lives as well as the lives of others. And I think there's one other commitment that we all need to make, and that is to protect dreamers. So I've made these young Americans, in 2014, they let the authorities know as they applied for status under DACA, their names, addresses, and basic information. That you needed to enroll in this program that President Obama announced a couple of years ago. So the authorities know who they are. And if they go to round them up, they're going to need people to protect them, to let them stay on the third floor of their house or what have you. There are local authorities who have already announced, mayors around the country, that they will not cooperate with the federal government in rounding up people to be deported. they need to be encouraged so that sanctuary, the idea of sanctuary cities extends really to the entire country. Even when you're living in a sanctuary city, that doesn't necessarily protect you. So I think it may be that we don't need to offer our homes to shelter them. And by the way, you're not at legal risk if you do this. I think this is something where there's some misunderstanding. There have been no prosecutions that I've been aware of people protecting those at risk of deportation. Perhaps a lawyer can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe that you're at any legal risk in doing this. It's just more a matter of commitment, staying connected to the Latino community so that you understand the various ways that you might be of help. It could be nothing more than helping pay for an attorney or recommend an attorney, or it might involve sheltering them. So I just want to make sure that we all understand that that's part of what might be our responsibility. And, you know, finally, I'm reminded of what a great conservative thinker, probably the greatest of all conservative thinkers, Edmund Burke, said. And that was that the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing. And that evil, they won't win. They won't win if we mobilize. Not only will they not win, but we will see a renewal of the progressive values. We have time and demography on our side. So if we can get through this period, protect our Constitution, protect our people, and protect our own sense of our deepest values, we're going to be okay. Thanks very much.